This is Rudy Giuliani with America's Mayor live from, again, Palm Beach. Today, we did take a trip to north. I always like to tell you where I go in Florida. And I went to the Motor Vehicle Bureau. Now, you know what it's like going to the Motor Vehicle Bureau in New York. I'm going to tell you, and Dr. Maria and I are writing a letter for these ladies. First of all, several didn't recognize me. Well, she says it's not true, but the lady who took the lady at the door recognized us, and she helped us. But then, when I got assigned to my, I was going to get an identification card. I haven't renewed my license. So I get an identification card. I went up to this lady. I'm telling you, this lady is a young lady. She didn't recognize me, and she was so nice. And she said, "Why don't you get a driver's license?" I said, "Well, I think it's been expired too long." And she said, "Well, I'm going to look and look. And then the supervisor woman came over, and the supervisor woman, and she was a probationary employee, a new employee, I think, and they've only been in this office for 2 days. She said, "I think there's a way. Let's check it out." And they went through and they did everything, and they found all my records, and they said, "You qualify for a license." And the long and short of it is, I took the picture, I paid the fee, I did everything, and they made it like we did it all in half hour.
Wow.
And right next to me was a young man having a similar problem, and they were treating him exactly the same way. So this was not because Rudy Giuliani, blah blah blah. There was one lady who came over, background, and she wanted to know about the show, like. How does she wants to know exactly how do you find the 8 o'clock show? So I wrote it out with Dr. Maria for her, because there's so many possibilities you can go on. I asked her, "Are you on Twitter X?" She said yes. "So you're on Facebook?" She said yes. "Well, you can get us on both." And I showed her how, at Rudy Giuliani, and she hooked it up. Then she got WABCRadio.com. She got the app, and then she whispered to me, "I'm the only Republican here. But see how nice they are to you. All Democrats are not that way." I said, "This is the way I grew up, sweetheart." And then she had to go outside to take a picture with me. And she told me the whole thing. She said, "Aren't they nice?" I said, "Nice. My goodness, they're angels." And they're this completely, people got to know this, that people that work for government, when they're in happy, good circumstances, do a good job. And then we're in a corrupt government like New York, it's totally different. And New York has become what it used to be, not just criminal now, it's become corrupt as hell. I mean, Hochul, I warned you about Hochul when she ran and she got the 300 million extra, which she produced by charging you $300 million more for COVID tests. You paid for her contribution because she bought the same COVID tests that California bought, the same amount. California paid 300 million. She paid 600 million. She got a $300 million contribution from the company. The Democrats do this all the time, all over the country. It is time to vote them out of office, require them to change the name of their party, and have them come back with all those very nice, good people that I saw, who maybe have a difference of two with Republicans, and let them set up their own political party. But we all agree on one thing for sure, but we don't lie about it like Biden. We agree on the Constitution. And we don't try to put Rudy Giuliani in jail for the rest of his life because he supports Donald Trump, or put leg irons on Peter Navarro because we don't like him, or hide the massive 30-year criminality of Joe Biden, who is the most crooked, dumbest, most demented president we ever have. And they know it just as much as we do. So now these idiots think we're stupid enough to fall for Democratic Russia collusion hoax number two. The first one was proven to be totally false and paid for by Hillary Clinton. Remember, it wasn't just like they made a mistake and picked Russia to falsely accuse Trump of collusion. Now, as a lawyer, I don't know what collusion means. It's not a legal term. There's a legal term called bribery. There's a legal term called fraud, where you have to lose money, except if you Trump. Somebody's got to lose money to be guilty. They have to take money from somebody. You can't just defraud somebody by making a couple of wrong statements, but they don't lose any money. That goes back to somewhere around William the Conqueror, by the way, just in case any of these people went to a real law school. The reality is somehow they're trying to dig up Russian collusion again. And I remember because it was the most startling morning of my life when I was awakened with a call. I think it was from Dr. Maria. And she said to me, the New York Times is validating the Hunter Biden hard drive. I said, what? Who gives a shit? Who gives a damn? This was 16 months after I produced it for the New York Post, and they censored it and called me a Russian stooge. And Biden called me a Russian pawn on national television and accused Trump of working for the Russian. She said, oh, yeah, and they say it had nothing to do with Russia. I said, it's really amazing. Is it like a big headline? She said, well, no, it's not a big headline, but it's there. You can see it, and it's being covered, actually. I went and got it. I woke up, and it was early. I woke up. I went and got it. It was in the Washington Post. CNN very, angrily covered it. What? New York Times today, Giuliani didn't, and he wasn't a Russian agent. Man, too bad. He looks like one. MSNBC said, Giuliani is not a Russian agent, but he's often been seen with many, many Russians, which is not true. But so I thought this was all over. But now we come back and we got this Smirnov thing. What a name for a Russian agent. Smirnov, right? When they first told me the other day that the Smirnov thing, it turns out that the FBI is arresting Smirnov. I said, geez, they're taking away vodka now. You want to show them a little Smirnov vodka? Yeah. Now, we're not advertising by any means, but it's very close. Smirnov spells his name a little differently. He has a Z at the end. Smirnov. Now, I want to make a very clear point to you, and it was made at the time that it came out, because they surely didn't want to give me credit for it, neither the committee nor the FBI. They made it very clear this had nothing to do with Giuliani. Smirnov has nothing to do with Giuliani. So now that he's been found to be, by the FBI, some kind of a Russian, what is he? I don't exactly know what he is. A Russian agent of some kind. I want to see how they figure out how they're going to tie me up with this guy that I never heard of, didn't know about. And I would not be in trouble with it. They had just believed what I gave him and went with it. Here's what happened. In January of 2020, at the request of the now disgraced Bill Barr, I went to the U.S. attorney in Pittsburgh named Brady. And with my lawyer, Bob Costello, I gave them a 4 to 5 hour briefing with PowerPoint that took them through maybe 20 crimes committed by the Biden family and a racketeering case that I proposed. Since I knew more about the racketeering statute than anyone in the room times 2, it was pretty helpful to them. I was doing racketeering cases before some of them were born. And I began racketeering prosecutions, and I never lost one. And you don't remember this, but I took over the Teamsters Union with the racketeering statute. Not only did I put all the mafia people in jail and the Wall Street people, but I took the Teamsters Union away from the mafia and Las Vegas away from both of them, which is why the Teamsters no longer support Republicans. Before me, the Teamsters supported the Republican Party. In the 1988 election, the Teamsters switched to the party they always should have been with, the crooked Democratic Party. And since then, even though they have now straightened out, they're still Democratic. It's due to me. I'm the reason, and there are many Republicans who hate me for it. Well, they just donated to Trump because here's what happened. In 1987, 88, we took them over. We had a board appointed that ran them for 10 years. You know Joe DeGeneva, who you see on television many times? He was one of the lawyers most responsible for getting the mafia out of the Teamsters. Teamsters has been mafia free for 20 years now. Perfectly honorable union, perfectly good union. And I'm very proud of that. I did it with the racketeering statute because I understand it better than anybody, because I had the honor of knowing the person who wrote it, Professor Robert Blakey. I watched him write it and the rationale for it, and then I put it to use in a very dynamic way. So the reality is, I recognized the racketeering case on the Biden crime family probably in February of 2019. This is before he ran for president. I had it ready in March of 2019. I gave it to John Solomon. I gave it to Hennessy, Hannity. I tried to give it to the Justice Department. I tried to give it to the State Department. They didn't want it. They didn't want it. I tried to give it to the Senate. They didn't want to go after a fellow member. I was told that. They all know he's a crook. Come on, you can't take the kind of money he was taking. Every single one of them knows he's a crook. Even the Republicans know he's a crook. It took everything. Even the Senate, even now, is not going after him. They're not going to touch him because he was a senator. Just like they never touched Menendez, right? Until Menendez crossed Biden, and then. So, I mean, the thing here is you can commit crimes if you support Biden. If you cross him, you're going to go to jail, even if you didn't commit crimes. That's a different kind of system, kind of like utilized in the old Soviet Union, China, Nazi Germany, and probably present day Russia. So Smirnov, they went to after they got my allegations in 2020, which were wrapped up with a bow, at least 10 easy prosecutions, which if I were U.S. attorney, would have all been indicted in 4 months, and probably the convictions that have been over by the end of the year. And as I did as a prosecutor, where I won almost all of my cases, if I lost one of them, it had just been bad luck. They were better. Most of them were better than the cases that I had prosecuted. They were clearly better than the cases that I prosecuted personally. The main case on Biden before the hard drive was probably the best criminal case I've ever seen. It had a confession. It had tape. It had money transactions going to Joe. It had 6 strong witnesses who corroborated each other. My God, I used to do it on one. And it had a defendant that couldn't take the witness stand because if he did, I would have gotten him to confess on the witness stand. And you think I'm bragging? Well, I used to do that. And Joe would have been easy because the people I did it with had an IQ. I'm talking about even when Joe was not demented, he was, as I've told you many times, the dumbest man I ever met. I would have considered it almost unfair to cross-examine him. It would have been like shooting fish in a barrel to get him to start dissembling and lying, and then you could prove one lie after. Wouldn't it be nice when if he said something like, "I never knew anything about my son's foreign dealings," and then I played the tape of him calling his son, leaving a message about his son's foreign dealings on his son's telephone. Joe, is that your voice? Mm-hmm. Are you talking about China there? Yeah. You talking about the business in China? Then he would do the demented thing. I gave my uncle a medal in the White House. Joe, your uncle was dead for 5 years before you were married. I still gave him a medal. Then he might be trying to look for the congresswoman who were dead and give her something, or maybe he'd tell you about Corn Pop and how he beat up Corn Pop. I took care of that Corn Pop.
Well, his biggest foe now are stairs.
Can you imagine cross-examining him? Would a judge that required him to answer questions? Even if the judge was as strict as the judge was on Fanny with the big fanny. I mean, come on. He used to work for her, and he almost held her in contempt. I'm not confident he's going to come down with a straight 100% ruling. This is hard for me to say because he could put me in jail for the rest of my life. But he's got to prove to me that he's honest. I really don't have to prove to him that I am. He's got to prove to me that he's honest by dismissing the case, because the case is bullshit. And if he doesn't dismiss it, he's bullshit. No, he's part of something like we have in New York, the corrupt Democrat machine, which I think Eric Adams has exposed big time with his debit card, which we will go over later. This is like Boss Tweed would be embarrassed of him. Be embarrassed in being so stupid. The Bidens are pretty stupid in some of the crimes they commit, but they got tremendous cover. I've actually never seen any criminals with the cover that the Bidens have. Adams doesn't realize nobody really likes him. Even the Bidens are trying to put him in jail in federal court. This scheme with the debit cards for illegal, give every illegal $1,000 to spend on food, except it isn't limited to food. And today he announces, do you think I'm giving them an American Express card? No, Jerko. You're giving them a MasterCard? Huh? It's called a MasterCard. Yeah. And by the way, do you know they can get it with no identification? I can't get it that way. But your illegals from Venezuela who just beat the living daylights out of your cops, they can all get it. And there's nothing that says on it that it's only for food. Oh, it's a debit card too. It's like cash. If one of those Venezuelans is hanging around from Trans-Aragua and he sees some maybe poor submissive migrant, he just can just grab the credit card and go use it. Just go, give me that damn credit card, Jerko. Do you have an ounce of common sense in your head? But we're going to go over that one in a little while. But you got to hang on for that one, because this is probably true of about half the Democrat Party, 75% of the big cities. So Smirnoff is a distraction. Whether he was telling the truth about the 10 million that went to Joe and his son or not, I have no idea. You never heard that from me. I told you, here's what they were paid. They were paid $80,000 a month for Hunter, $80,000 a month for Devin Archer, $2 million a year. That was the deal. There are records of that, including laundered records of that. They were paid, and there are witnesses for this, so that when it was necessary to get the Burisma case fixed against Zlochevsky, Biden would do it from his powerful position as the point man for Ukraine, who was more powerful than the crooked president of Ukraine, Poroshenko. Because Zlochevsky, who owned Burisma, realized the president of the Ukraine is going to take my company. There's only one person more powerful in Ukraine than the president of Ukraine, and that's Joe Biden, because Obama has made him more powerful by putting him in charge of the money. And remember the tape recording in front of the Council on Foreign Relations. It all comes together. Joe says, I told Poroshenko, the crooked president of the Ukraine, if you want your $1 billion, you have got to fire the prosecutor. Boom. Doesn't tell you who the prosecutor is. Prosecutor is the prosecutor of Burisma, who is prosecuting both his son and the billionaire oligarch Zlochevsky. The guy resists. He resists because the guy is a friend. The prosecutor is a friend, I think a godfather of one of his kids. He resists, but he tells him, you don't do it, you don't get the $8 billion or the billion. To which Poroshenko says, you're not the president. And Joe says, call him. Call him.
I gotta get that. Sounds like a mob guy.
Call him. All the jackasses on the foreign, the Council on Foreign Relations is made up of the biggest phonies that ever lived. And one of the reasons we're in so much trouble right now. Every single one of them. If you're stupid enough to join, you're stupid enough to believe they're crap. Now, I didn't join. I refused to join because I think they've been wrong on American foreign policy since I was a little boy. I thought they were wrong when I was a little boy. So they all clapped. They actually clapped. I love this. If I teach criminal law again, I'm going to use it They clap for an admitted bribe. I could trace it on a blackboard. There are only two elements to bribery. I mean, it gets a little more complicated. The two basic elements goes back about 700-800 years of Anglo-American law. You have to offer a thing of value for official action. Thing of value, official action. $1 billion, thing of value, particularly for a country that goes under if it doesn't get it, to the president. Woo. On the other side, official action. Get rid of the prosecutor. Now you got the crime of bribery. Now you can fill it in. You can make it less. You can mitigate it. You can make it more serious. You can make it less serious. But now you got the crime of bribery. These half-wits, hey, Joe, you bribed them. Wait a minute, you bribed them. What a bunch of jackasses. And these are the guys who do foreign policy for us. You bribed them. Then it turns out, here's what he leaves out. Did I tell you? His son is under investigation by the prosecutor that he wants fired. And Ted tells me I have to now take a short break, and we'll finish that in a minute, and then we'll show you how Smirnoff doesn't mean a damn thing. I mean, whether he's telling the truth or he isn't, who really gives a damn? We'll be right back.
Celebrate the new year, we're having the biggest sale ever on overstock clearance and brand new products. For example, save 60% on our Goose Down comforters, the best comforters ever. They go perfectly with our MyPillow bed sheets and duvet covers. Save 25% on our brand new kitchen towels. They're made with the same technology as our famous My Towels. Our initial quantities are extremely low, so get them now before they go. Our seasonal flannel sheets are finally in. You save up to 50% and they sell out fast every year, so order now. They're truly the best flannel sheets you'll ever sleep on. Or save up to 80% on all our clearance items. And this is where it gets even better. For a limited time, your entire order ships absolutely free. So go to MyPillow.com or call the number on your screen. Use that promo code to get deep discounts on all MyPillow products. And for a limited time, your order ships absolutely free.
Well, we're back. I'm just writing down what Mike said. I think he said, correct me, he said 50% discount.
Yeah,
But
wow.
Did he say on some items 80%? Wow.
If you use the code Rudy.
Wow. And then I got the little note here. Free shipping for MyPillow ends on Sunday. So I don't know. Why not pick up the free shipping? Look for the 50% items. Look for the 80% items. And actually do it also to help your country. You give money to Mike. He gives money back to all the causes that we support. Some we don't even know about. I mean, some that we don't find out about for a year.
That's
that
right.
are fighting for the people on January 6th who have been treated like the Japanese who were interred in World War II. Mike does that. So let me get back and finish up the Smirnoff thing. So I mean, Hunter and Joe are guilty 5 times over. There's a take you back to podcast 5. We got the whole piece of paper there. This is way back before he was even running for president, where 14 million is laundered by Burisma. It goes to the Biden company, and 800,000 to 900,000 of it goes out to Joe. That good enough for you? Well, he was vice president. Think maybe he should have been in jail then? Of course he should have. Why is he in jail then? Because the FBI was corrupt. Who's telling us that Smirnoff changed his testimony? The FBI. You believe him? You really believe him? I remember when they raided my house and my law office. Half the country believes it. All the communist reporters would say, where there's smoke, there's fire.
Love that line. They love it.
Turned out where there was smoke, there was bullshit. That's the truth. And not only that, it's embodied in a letter from the United States attorney to the grand jury saying they found no probable cause on any of those searches, including having my iCloud account for 3 years from the day I began representing Donald Trump. Remember how they denied they were spies? Liars. Now, I don't know if Smirnov, until a few weeks ago, was their most valuable informant. They actually told the Congress that they couldn't reveal him because he was so important. They've paid him possibly over $1 million. They've used him in what they say is their most sensitive investigation. He's proven to tell the truth. And all of a sudden now, when he says something detrimental to the guy they have spent the last 5 years ruining the FBI to protect, Joe Biden, all of a sudden he becomes a liar. Now, they're going to have to explain how exactly that amount of money came out of Zlochevsky's account, ready to be distributed at exactly the time that Smirnov said. I don't know. They'll come up with something. Maybe Zlochevsky will disappear. And I will tell you something. The damn FBI has never, ever interviewed a woman who claims she could be killed. They left her hanging there, who says she can give up the offshore bank account. And they never bothered to ask her. Now, I don't know if she can. I don't know if she can. I know for sure I investigated honestly, unlike them, for years. No way I would have interviewed her unless I was afraid of the answer, because we're protecting Biden. When Biden got caught buying a gun illegally, the Secret Service went there and tried to steal the records. The guy who owned the gun store was so brave, he said, "Get the hell out of here. It's not your job. What the hell are you doing? Let the ATF come for it." Then it took 3 years to prosecute him. Not only was he a drug addict, buying guns and lying, you want an aggravating factor? He was driving around constantly smoking crack, high as a kite, could have killed 10 kids, and nobody gave a damn in Delaware or in the FBI. And nobody gave a damn when the psychiatrist said he should be kept away from his niece when she was only 14 years old, and his grandfather knew it. The grandfather knew it, and he didn't give a damn. Now, you want to know why I call him evil? Because I know him, and he knows me. And that's why he wants to put me in jail for the rest of my life, because that's where he belongs. So forget the Smirnov thing. It's just the FBI, again, screwing around. Right behind me, it's there to remind us. It's not D-Day. There's no special day today. Why does there have to be? See every one of those crosses? That's by and large, a young man, could be as young as 17 years old, who never had a life. Never had a child, probably. Some did. Never came back to them. Their parents had to live in agony for the rest of their lives. And as Colin Powell once said, America won that war. Russia, get the hell out of here. The Russian army was on the balls of its ass at the end of the war. They just crept through against their former ally, Nazi Germany. Would you please remember that Stalin was Hitler's ally? When they say there's a difference between Nazism and communism, you explain to me how Stalin and Hitler began the war, allies, and do you know who broke the alliance? Not Stalin. Hitler invaded him. So the selective use of history is amazing among left-wing traitors. It's amazing. But see those graves there? This war never would have ended if they didn't do that. They went into France. More bodies left on that beach than probably any amphibious invasion. Never to live again. We won the war. We got a setback at the Battle of the Bulge with Hitler's brilliant idea of switching from the Russian front to here. Russia wouldn't have won the war if Hitler didn't take 800,000 troops out of Russia and bring them to the Eastern Front, line up at the entrance to Germany, call the Bulge, Eisenhower is predicting we'll be in Berlin in Christmas. We didn't get there until the middle of the summer. You know who got there first? The outrageous general that was set aside, Patton. And he was sitting there ready to go into Poland. Could have taken East Berlin immediately, like that. Stopped by the communists around Roosevelt.
So, Mayor, why did our South and Allies give Russia so much of Eastern Europe?
Because Franklin Roosevelt was two things. He was soft on communism. His wife was probably a communist, and he was soft on communism. He was surrounded by convicted, eventually, communists. And by the end, he was as demented as Joe Biden. They were, propping him up on his wheelchair, and he was going, boo-ba-ba. And at Yalta, he gave it away completely, and he died about 4 weeks later. And Truman inherited, he didn't know what, because I'm not sure Roosevelt even talked to Truman. Truman had no idea we had an atom bomb. I'm sure Truman didn't know that he had all the communists around him.
He didn't, yeah. Did he make a big change when he got into office?
He did not. He was now also this reinvention of Truman. We'll go through that sometime too. This was a man of fairly limited background, knowledge, experience, and he got really taken advantage of tremendously.
So would we have been better off if Dewey really did beat Truman?
Damn right we would have. We would have gotten probably the best prosecutor in the 20th century, except for me.
Dewey,
yeah,
came from New York.
He had my office.
I had your office.
Damn right, U.S. attorney. Except I had it longer and I did more.
Dewey beats Truman, one of the most famous pictures.
So, James Biden. Do I really have to tell you that James Biden was lying today? I don't think I'm going to even bother.
Well,
James Biden James Biden goes back to the trailer trash days where the Bidens come from. When he was scrounging around as an early senator for every bit of bribe that he could get. Then he used his son at M&A Bank. And I mean, Joe, and you look at them, they look like two mafia jerks. Which one is which, by the way? Can you tell?
It actually is kind of, I think Joe's the one that's sleeping.
Which
eyes are closed. Joe's the red tie, I think.
You think?
I think.
Where do you think they're passing the money? Like under the belt?
Yeah, you can't see the hands.
You see, Joe didn't trust using anybody else's bagmen but his relatives. You don't get it? Now, here's the evil thing about that. One of his relatives was a very, very delicate, very sick, really sad kid who had an addiction problem. He was addiction prone. I don't know. You got a son like that, I think you keep him out. Even if you are a crook, you keep him out. Gosh almighty, I listened to 4,000 hours of mafia guys on tape. I can find you 4 or 5 examples of mafia guys who were better fathers than this guy. Oh, they sure as hell wouldn't have disowned their granddaughter either and broken her heart. Or I'll tell you another thing. If they found out that their son was a danger to their granddaughter, in an Italian family, you wouldn't last very long. I'll tell you that. My dad would have had a hard time with that one. Oh, so would Papa Rudy. Because I have a conscience. The Arizona prosecutor should get the Prosecutor of the Year award for refusing to return a violent criminal and murderer to the tender mercies of Alvin Bragg. Because here's why she did it. She got this guy in her jurisdiction named, these names are, I don't know why, the other thing that makes this really more difficult, Biden let in, about 8 million people? We don't know who they are. Every single one of them has a name you can't pronounce. So now we got another name we can't pronounce, which is Rad Al-Mansoon. Rad Al-Mansoon committed murder in New York just a little while ago. And then he took off, and Bragg, gave him a nice, I don't know what he did, but the guy shows up in Arizona, right? And in Arizona, he does a carjacking. He stabs a woman. He kidnaps and stabs a worker at McDonald's. He goes on what they describe as a crazed crime spree. And it turns out that he should have been held in New York. So the district attorney, Rachel Mitchell, who had previously had what she thought were the Venezuelan Biden illegals who beat up the cops there and had to arrest them. It was actually wrong information. They were somewhere else. She refused to return this guy, Almanson. So now the left-wing press says, how can she do that? She had the wrong information. She had, these people really weren't the people that beat up the cops. It turns out she had other Venezuelan illegals that Bragg had let out on bail, without bail, who came there and committed crimes.
Like this guy.
And that's why the press was confused. And that's why she was confused. So, I mean, what does it matter if it's this set of criminals or that set of criminals? But the press, the illegal press, wanted to make her the bad guy. Now, I would like to take a poll of New Yorkers without Democrat, Republican, and just ask the following. We got a guy who's a car thief, a violent criminal, a murderer, all alleged murderer, blah, 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 in several states. You can have him prosecuted by Bragg in New York or by the DA in Arizona. I'd like to ask the people in New York, how do you vote? Would you trust some other prosecutor to do it who has something like a 90% conviction record, or the guy who dismisses 50% of his felonies? Oh, and the guy who's presided over one of the single biggest one-year increases in crime in Manhattan. Who would you rather have doing it? I think there's no doubt 80% would say the lady in Arizona. What do we want the guy back for? So even Bragg was as good a prosecutor as her. If Arizona's willing to take care of the guy for us and we're running out of money, what the hell do we want the guy back for to make Bragg a hero? Why doesn't Bragg say, fine, you want to prosecute? They can put this guy in jail for 20 years. 20 years from now, maybe we'll have the money to prosecute him and we'll have a real DA like we used to have. Right now, we got a communist son of a bitch who lets everybody out. And there's nobody that doesn't realize that. Hochul and Adams realize they're just afraid. Hochul's afraid of everything. Hochul's afraid because she wants to make sure she can hang on so she and her husband can get their payoff on all the kickback on the stadium.
Go Bills.
Adams, you will see why he's afraid of Bragg. I was told this from day one, that he would never take on Bragg because Bragg could investigate him. I was told that by two people.
I remember that over a year ago. I was with you when someone told you that.
I said, I'm not sure of that. I can't buy into that. Now I can tell, and we'll go in a minute to that. But first, let's go with a couple of our stories. Joe sells out Israel. Joe is now willing to back a resolution for a ceasefire. He's working on the details of it, which means that Hamas will be left intact in the southern part of Israel. It's already left intact in Qatar and a number of other countries. And it will take, with our money, because we're giving them money right now. We're giving Hamas money right now. Every bit of humanitarian aid that goes there is money for Hamas. Why would Hamas deliver humanitarian aid? Huh? They're animals. They're dictators. They're tyrants. If they weren't, Palestine has gotten enough money, it'd be the Riviera by now. Just use your common sense, huh? Please also try to do that about Chicago and New York. If the Democrat politicians weren't crooks, and in particular, the blacks who represent those areas weren't crooks, they got enough money to be Monaco. Except, Charlie Rangel can't walk away worth $30 million if they become Monaco. Think about it. They're called poverty pimps. And they make a lot more money than most pimps. And they were the people you unfortunately elected. And that's the reason those places are in those conditions. It's not because the money hasn't been provided. More money has been provided than you could have done if you gave me that money. and you let me do what I did between 94 and 2002, I could have gotten the whole place cleaned up. I got it pretty well cleaned up without that money. I was the only one who did, by the way. We could go over that also another time. Also, Biden is now going to do new asylum rules. This is to try to save his pathetic backside. Watch him carefully, because here's what they're going to include. First of all, there'll be discretion built into the rule, which means it will never be carried out. It'll just be for your benefit. Second, he's going to try to set up a floor. Like after he tried the 5,000, after 5,000 illegals come in, we'll then cut it off. 5,000 illegals a day is 1.8 million illegals a year. That's more than we ever had before Biden, ever under any president, including Prince Obama. So he's setting a floor that used to be a record for illegals coming in. Now, can we afford another 1.8 million migrants a year when we got 8 million of them here now? And I'm telling you, I think you know I'm telling you the truth here. We don't know who they are. We don't know if when Trump says they come out of insane asylums, the answer is some of them do. Maybe the president should better say some of them do. But maybe it gets your attention more if he says they do. But I can guarantee you that Maduro in Venezuela is following his pal Castro and doing what Castro did in 1978, 1979. He's sending in some good people, and he did, but he's putting in there the prisons, the insane asylums, and the truly maniacal insane asylums, the people that kill you on sight. I had to deal with them. I saw them with my own eyes. I had to deal with them in Atlanta Penitentiary because I was in charge of the Bureau of Prisons then. And the personnel in the Atlanta Penitentiary hated me for giving it. They wanted the mafia back. These people were throwing feces at each other. If you made a mistake and you put a dominant homosexual with a submissive homosexual, they crack their necks. We got about 5 of those until we could figure out how to scope it out and put some here and some here. These were people that were so sick. I'm not sure we had people like this in American asylums. So, I mean, we're subjected to this from any of these corrupt countries that are sending people in. Why wouldn't they get rid of their problems? Well, we'll be right back. Towers Foundation delivers on its promise to do good and never forget the sacrifices America's greatest heroes have made for us. Heroes who risked their lives to keep our communities and our country safe. Heroes like United States Marine Corps Captain and pilot John Jeremy Sachs. Captain Sachs sustained fatal injuries when his military aircraft crashed during training, killing him and 5 other service members. He's remembered by loved ones as courageous, brilliant, and devoted to his career, family, and friends. John is survived by his wife, Amber, who gave birth to their second daughter 3 months after his death. Tunnels to Towers paid the mortgage on the family home for Amber and their 2 daughters. The foundation has helped over 1,000 military and first responder families navigate the worst of times by removing the burden of a mortgage payment. Our nation's heroes and their families need your help now more than ever. Donate $11 a month to Tunnel to Towers at T2T.org. T2T.org. That's T, the number 2T.org. T2T.org. Please donate now.
Body is an amazing chemical laboratory. When you give it the right chemistry, it functions the best. Balance of Nature is the ultimate whole fruit and vegetable chemistry.
Get 35% off your first order by using discount code RUDY.
Ladies and gentlemen, I wish I had Grace here, but she did it for me before. She went to see her friend. Last night, Grace did this for us, and we had a big night. So I want you to go to balanceofnature.com. Yeah, get your fruits 30. How much percent off?
35% off
30.
when you use the promo code Rudy.
Tell them how to do it again
imperative.
while I take
Visit
advantage of this.
balanceofnature.com. Use that promo code Rudy. Not only are you doing yourself, your body, your mind a big favor, but you're supporting everything the mayor is doing here on America's Mayor Live. And of course, Balance of Nature is ran by some great patriots. These are great Americans.
Take 2 at a time. Dr. Maria would tell you that.
So head on over to balanceofnature.com. And again, you're going to want to use that promo code Rudy for 35% off.
I'm telling you, that's how I keep up with Grace. It works. So I love dogs. Did you know that? I'm thinking very hard about getting one. Today, I was shocked to see that Biden had to give up another dog who bit 24 Secret Service agents, bad enough so one had to go to a hospital. Another time, they had to close down the White House because there was so much blood on the floor. And Jill was taking care of him. I don't know what she did. Tell him to sick the Secret Service agent or something. But remember, he had another dog named Major who had a straight week of biting Secret Service agents. Now, it's got to be they're training them to do it. I mean, what dog bites 24 people? And who gets to keep a dog that bites 24 people?
What do they do after the 22nd time?
How about after the 3rd or 4th? I mean, if your beautiful little dog bit 4 people, what would happen? They take your dog away.
Yeah, sorry.
This guy is eating up the Secret Service.
Yeah, not just
anybody.
are they law enforcement.
Are they that submissive? They don't complain about it? Geez, I know they got to protect the president, but they don't have to get devoured by dogs, by mad dogs. And it's got to be the Biden's fault. I mean, there has to be a connection between how criminal, how mean, and how perverted this family is and those dogs. It's got to be. The dogs are a reflection. I mean, even the dogs they have are perverted and criminal.
Commander.
And dogs don't start off that way. You make them like that.
24 incidences.
I mean, we just shouldn't have somebody in the White House who has a dog that bites the Secret Service 24 times. And Biden, he doesn't bite Biden.
Wonder
Well,
why.
maybe he does. Maybe that's why Biden's in the condition he's in. I don't. Maybe Biden likes it. We have no idea what perversions this guy has. Anybody who smells women's hair could do anything. We have a New York Senate race in New York. I got to tell you about it because I am ready to
blow a gasket.
I'm ready to. I don't know what, but I'm going to tell you about this race. So you don't know her, but her name is Senator Gillibrand. You don't know because she didn't do anything. She shows up a couple of times a year. She never shows up in New York. She's useless. Has she ever passed legislation? I'm even sure she knows what it is, but she's probably going to win because we are a reflexively Pavlovian dog Democrat state. We just vote Democrat, like Chicago and Illinois. So the Republican Party bosses have superimposed a candidate on the party. Now, we have a primary in New York. And in the old days, when this party was half the time in charge of New York, Governor Rockefeller, Senator Javits, Senator D'Amato, Governor Pataki, Mayor Giuliani. Generally, the way we handle the convention is we threw things to the primary. If you, even with a party choice, but there were 2 or 3 other people that were major candidates, you'd give them 25%. We even have a provision on the second ballot and the third ballot. We let you, the Republican Party, choose the candidate. And in a time in which we want to build the party, because we get wiped out in New York, we haven't had a governor in an age, and the state is in the worst condition it's ever been. And the city, I believe this mayor is worse than de Blasio. Now, people will dispute that with me, but I can tell you, I know more about being mayor than you do, and he is. Substantively, he's doing more damage long-term to the city than de Blasio did. So we got to put up a candidate, and we're going to have Trump on the ballot. And it's a big long shot that he could win New York. I don't know. In a big sweep, he's only losing by 9%, which is remarkable. He's winning the Hispanic vote in New York. And the governor is down to her lowest approval rating ever, 41%, which is only not so substantial because the mayor is at 28%, which is the lowest approval rating of any mayor ever. So we got a chance. So the party decides, the bosses are going to decide on a candidate. We're going to go smoke our cigars and decide on a candidate. And they decide on a guy, I don't even know his first name, Sapriconi, who's been a police officer for 30 years. I've never heard of him. But I'm not going to say anything about his police career. I don't know if it was good, bad, or in between. He also ran a security company. I was in the security business, never heard of a security company. But okay, they might have all been great. We just lost an election because we nominated a Democrat instead of a Republican, and half the Republicans walked out. The Democrat was Amelie Phillip, and she was actually registered as a Democrat and wouldn't change. And I supported her because until she said that she would not support Trump if Trump got convicted. And then I said, that means you've fallen for the propaganda. Because if you believe that the indictments are unjust, the product of a fascist state, which they are, then the conviction's worse than the indictment. And if you're not smart enough to get there, I don't want you as a congressman. Well, she got killed because the Republicans walked out on her. The people who support Trump, by the way, have something that Republican bosses don't get, called loyalty and principle. So let me tell you about Sapricone. In 2022, which I guess is 2 years ago, he gave $37,000 to Swazi. Recently, he gave $2,500 to Todd Kaminsky. You don't know who Todd Kaminsky is, but he's the guy who authored bail reform, which is the reason probably for half our crime in New York. How a cop could have given that kind of money to him is hard to believe. He would have to do an awful lot of explaining. Plus, he's given altogether about 130 grand to the Democrat Party in just the last couple of years, right?
Over $140,000 to Democrat Party causes. So that's
since when?
Since 2017. That's since Trump's been in office,
and he was a cop.
And he's a cop. So this is right around when this
is the year in which Soros is putting all these people in. This is during 2020 when cops are getting the hell kicked out of them by the Democrats. This is during defund the police movement by the Democratic Party. And he's given $140,000 to the Democratic Party. And he gave some money to the Republican Party, but it's about 2 to 1 or 3 to 1. Now you're going to get the best one of all because it's $1,000 that ends it. $1,000 to Letitia James in 2022. This is when she's running to persecute Trump. She has one mission, and the NRA. I'm going to throw the NRA out, and I'm going to put Trump in jail. And this guy gives her $1,000. And they want us to support him. I'm sorry, boss. I don't have any bosses. Screw you. I don't even know who runs the Oh, Cox. Ed, you're my friend. What the hell are you doing? Ed, what are you doing? Did you look at the grand to Letitia James? Jesus, Ed. Let it out. We're never going to build a party like this. That is disgraceful. This is absolutely disgraceful. And now maybe it was $1,000 mistake to Letitia James. It can't be. Not if you did 140 grand to the Democrat Party while they're yelling about defunding the police, former police officer. Who's the biggest funder of the Democratic Party? George Soros, who's probably the biggest cause of police deaths in America and of young black people dying. With all the prosecutors he put, we just picked Philadelphia, where he put a prosecutor in, and they set within a year they started to set records for homicide. And who bears the brunt of the homicides? Young black kids. And you're giving this kind of money to the Democrat Party, and now you're running on our. I mean, I believe in Democrats coming over, but I believe on Democrats coming over who don't support Letitia James. I believe on Democrats coming over who have not supported the guy who did bail reform. The other ones can stay where they are. That's where you belong. I mean, go with the new Communist Party they're going to set up. That's what you've been doing. And that's my party in New York. Of course, it's a worthless party. It hasn't elected anybody since Pataki and me. And I know they did a lot of dishonest things during my son's election that my son doesn't want me to talk about. But these days, it'll be in my book. So these, my party in New York is not reflective of what the Republican Party should be. And you know what? There are a lot of people in New York that are very good Republicans. And that's why this guy will get killed. They will not vote, as they've shown in the past. They will not vote for a turncoat. And they won't vote for people. This is worse than a rhino. And I don't know why you'd even vote for a rhino. We do have a little more of those than most places have, unfortunately, because these unprincipled people think they have to change their views to fit the voters, and they don't realize what America needs are people who have views that mean something. They need principle and honesty and decency.
Mayor, what was the Republican? Can you talk about the dynamics for those of us not from New York? You have the Republican Party, the Democrat Party, but you have a third.
Yeah, well, the Conservative Party goes along with the Republican Party.
And there's a Liberal Party or no?
It used to be.
Okay. When you were mayor,
the Conservative Party does whatever the Republican Party bosses tell it to do. So they supported the same. Imagine the Conservative Party supporting a guy who supported the person who did bail reform. I mean, what does conservative mean anything other than maybe the guy gave him a lot of money? I mean, you can easily get the Conservative Party nomination with a big contribution.
That's right. And think when you remember, I mean, we think of New York as so liberal today.
How do you think Bloomberg got the Republican nomination?
Your endorsement.
Not the nomination. He got elected with my endorsement.
Oh, he had to win a primary. You didn't endorse him a primary?
He gave him a fortune.
Oh, he bought it. Okay, he bought it. Yeah. Right.
I mean, he couldn't buy the presidency, but he bought the mayoralty, 100 million election. I mean, I did it for 10.
I'm going to read about that race because I wonder if you could have
spent 10 times more than I did to win.
You didn't endorse him in the primary.
Was there? I don't remember if I did,
because that's how he won it. I don't think he would have won the mayor's. Seeing how that guy ran for president, I'm convinced he's only became mayor because of your endorsement.
I've always told you about a primary. The party could always win the primary.
Yeah,
it's very, very. I don't know how I beat them when I did, because I beat D'Amato, and they outspent me 17 million to 1, and I beat them 71-29
in your first
in 1989.
In 89.
They ran Ron Lauder against me, who's an independent millionaire, and he put in for then an unbelievable amount, 17 million. I had 1, and I beat the hell out of him in a debate.
Ron Lauder, and then
absolutely just, gee, Ron, don't get upset, but I just destroyed you in the debate when you wouldn't shake hands with me.
Ron Lauder, of course, of the Estee Lauder Cosmetics.
Yeah, and of course,
that's a big name. That's the guy's got money.
He has a lot of money, but I had a hell of a record. So remember, I ran right after I destroyed the mafia, destroyed Wall Street, the wrong part of Wall Street, put 2 Nazis to death.
The corruption
took Las Vegas away from the mafia, took the Teamsters away from the mafia, prosecuted most of Koch's administration.
Not Koch, though.
Because he's an honest man.
He didn't know what was going on.
Koch was an honest man. He just didn't pay attention. In the second half of his mayoralty, he got bored because he got depressed because he lost the governorship to Cuomo.
He ran for governor while he was mayor and lost in the primary.
Fascinating history.
Yeah, I got to read
it. I mean, because of my age, there are probably not too many people left who know the political history of New York the way I do.
Yeah.
because I am 79 years old, according to Nikki Haley, incapable of, being president.
But I mean, New York's
So maybe I would be more capable of being president than she is. First of all, I'm going to make a few points for myself.
Yeah.
I know the reason for the Civil War. I know the two provinces, actually the three in Ukraine that she wants to save, but she doesn't know the name of.
No, you could give directions. No, you could tell me how to get
I
there.
could have given you the street directions there
You did,
because I worked in Ukraine and I helped to build, as you know, because the other day I was very worried because they got attacked again, the emergency management center in Kharkiv, the city in eastern Ukraine that is held out.
Yeah.
And probably the most unlikely city to hold out because it's right on the Don border.
So you would think a lot of them probably speak Russian.
They all speak Russian. Mainly they're Russians who used to be pro-Russian. So when Ukraine was split 50-50 politically between Ukrainians who were for the pro-Russian party or Ukrainians who were for the Ukrainian nationalistic party, Kharkiv was a solid vote for the pro-Russian party. Now, here's what happened. The animal Putin, because Putin is a wild maniac killer, but a very smart man. Please understand that. And when Trump says that, it shows his intelligence and his sophistication, not his liking of the guy. I had to deal with master criminals. If you don't realize your adversary is smart, you get taken all the time like Dopey does. I mean, even if he wasn't corrupt and a communist, he's dopey. So Putin invades in 2014. Why he does this, I don't know, because Putin's not, as I said, is not a dumb man. This was a dumb thing to do. He invades and he sends his troops into Kharkiv. I swear to God, he could have made a phone call, called the mayor and said, we'd like to occupy Kharkiv. And the mayor would have made a deal with him. The mayor loved him. The mayor loved him. The mayor supported his candidate in 3 elections. The guy who got expelled from Ukraine was an ally of the mayor of Kharkiv. Instead, he invades with his troops. Doesn't even tell the mayor he's going to do it. He kills, 20% of the people in the town. The mayor says, screw you, puts a militia together. They drive the Russians out, except the mayor becomes a paraplegic. He gets shot himself, and the mayor becomes a lifelong enemy. And the city becomes a lifelong enemy of Russia. And it's mostly Russian. They may not even be Ukrainian Russian. They may be Russian, and they don't want Putin. Because he came for no reason at all and tried to kill them. When they were ready to, they probably wanted him more than Ukraine. Now it's just the opposite. So when this new one starts, first thing he does is try to take Kharkiv back. He has not been able to do it in all this time. He's taken all that land all the way down to the Crimea. Go take a look at the map and you'll see good old Kharkiv right there with the whole area. And they have a whole fortress around it. They tried about 3 weeks ago. They had a major bombardment there and it really worried me. They killed some people that I know. I was assured they're not taking this place. There's only one way they take this place. It reminded me of Churchill. They'll have a city with everybody dead.
Why? So why do you?
And these are Russians.
Yeah.
These are not, I'm telling you, some of these people are pure Russians.
So they have deep disdain for Putin.
You see it there?
Yeah.
Are they showing it on the
I'm not. I can share it with the audience here. We'll share the screen.
It's a remarkable city. I really loved the short time. I'm only there like for on and off for a couple of years, but I really admired the people there because they had made the switch already when I got to know them. I don't know what they were like when they were pro-Russian.
Mm-hmm. Well, there it is.
But if you need any incentive for how bad Putin is,
we'll zoom in here. That's Kharkiv right there.
That's it right there.
And then there's the
so basically. Now, do you want to show a map of Ukraine? Because we can show
zoom out here.
The strategic. Okay,
Ukraine.
There's the map of Ukraine. So if you see Kharkiv up, can I point and will they see it if I point?
I'll put the arrow over it. Well, you're pointing on Kharkiv, right?
You know what I'll do? Why don't I put one up here?
Okay, yeah. Then you can view. Yeah, I see what you're saying. So in the meantime, what we're showing here is Ukraine, and you can see on the
And
right
you take
side
over,
there.
Ted, while I
I'll
do
take over while you
my map stuff here.
do some map stuff here. So what you're looking at is Ukraine, of course, and Kharkiv right there on the right hand of your screen. You can see I'm circling it now. It's not far from the border with Russia, and as the mayor said, it's made up a lot of former Russians who must have some deep disdain for Putin, right? Therefore, these guys, these are they'll hold out. Unlike a place like Crimea,
Yeah.
where there was a lot of support for what I guess they call the reunification, right? That's how they refer to it, the reunification of Ukraine and Russia. In a lot of these regions, sometimes 30-40% support for Russia.
If I go up here on the
All
map,
right, let's go to the map the mayor has now
I
brought
can
up.
go up on here on the map and they can see it well.
Yeah.
Okay, so Russia
All right,
invaded.
We'll zoom in.
Russia invaded in order to take this. That's Donetsk. That's one of the provinces that Dopey Haley should have known. when she was asked that question, and she didn't know the provinces that she wants us to put in billions of dollars for and watch 100,000 people die for. And I just said, this woman is as phony as all the politicians I know. Now, I didn't expect that DeSantis would know that, or even that Christie would know it. They're not fighting for that. Nobody's going to know all the provinces in a country. I happen to know because I work there. And because I also investigated my ass off there. But she should know it if she's going to spend billions of our dollars going to a corrupt country. She better know where she wants it to go, or she's just going to be like Biden. You think the money we give to Ukraine is spent all on that? God, you got to be really naive to think that. But here's Russia. See, okay, they don't mark it out on the map, but Kharkiv's right here. Yep. So basically, Russia wanted this. It's called the land bridge to Crimea. See, they had Crimea. They had their nuclear fleet here. It had always been theirs. Khrushchev gave it back to Ukraine. Russians have hated that since then. Khrushchev gave it back to Ukraine because Khrushchev was a Ukrainian. You think Haley knows this? I doubt it. Okay. You think Biden knows this?
Oh, gosh.
If he does, he wouldn't remember.
Oh, gosh.
So when they first invaded, they came in here in Kharkiv, above Kharkiv, right below Kharkiv. Some of the troops went up this way. Some of the troops went down this way. Down this way, they've had tremendous success. And now they own most of this, okay? That's the 20% they have. They've never been able to get this part that they wanted. Now, why is it important? They still have their land bridge. It happens to be the second biggest city in Russia, possibly per capita, the most profitable. Tremendous amount of natural resources. The country, that country you see right there, which is made up of wonderful, educated people, religious people, good people, is one of the most corrupt in the world because it's one of the richest countries in the world, potentially. Per capita, per yardage, per mile, it is a hell of a lot richer and a hell of a lot more productive than Russia. First of all, for all the land Russia has, they can produce 5 times more food. One time known as the breadbasket of Europe. They're probably one of the most efficient producers of food on the European continent. Second, they've got a massive amount of natural gas, oil, and other minerals, considerably more endowed than Russia for their space. So they have a much smaller population to feed and take care of, and they've got more resources. So Russia wants them. It also, as you can see, has always been a protection for them. It's like a moat around a castle, except it's a gigantic moat, and it's a moat that can fight. That's what defeated Napoleon. This is where Napoleon got defeated, not by the Russians, by the Ukrainians. He bogged down here because he decided to continue his campaign during the winter. Hitler, a brilliant military tactician, despite the fact that he's the most evil man in the history of the world, decided to go around. He never invaded Ukraine.
Hitler?
Yeah. First of all, Stalin had pretty much wiped out Ukraine. He killed about 20 million Ukrainians. Stalin, his ally, killed about 20. I mean, they both hated Ukraine. So there was nothing there, but still, he's afraid. So he went through Belarus, came up through Romania and through here, but basically came up this way, through Poland, because he controlled Poland, and he came up that way. I don't know if I can go up further.
But he didn't make it too far, right past there. That's about where Hitler
That's where that.
they didn't make it to Moscow or Leningrad. Did
Yeah,
they?
but here's what the Russians don't want to tell you. Just as he was about to enter Moscow, he decided to do something arguably brilliant. He moved close to 1 million of the troops he had here.
He
He
moved them.
moved them across Europe to the border of Germany and France. And he put them there in the Alsace region of France. And when we came there, we didn't know they were there. Eisenhower and our intelligence had missed it. And we had the worst battle of the Second World War
Battle of the Bulge.
with the largest number of casualties, much more than Normandy. And it delayed 6 months our winning of the war, the Battle of the Bulge. Now, how did he accomplish that?
Yeah.
We had, as a great movie displays, gotten their signals. So for about 3 years, we were feeding off knowing the Russian codes. Russians finally figured it out.
That we found out. Okay.
So Hitler kept sending out codes that he was reinforcing Russia. Those codes were interpreted by his people to move people to the front, to the east, to the western front.
To lead, yeah.
Yeah. So
Do the opposite almost.
it wasn't until about 3 days before the battle, we realized he had fooled us.
By then we were.
And we had our best general on the sidelines. He was sitting in the south of France, Patton, because he was politically incorrect. You know, he slapped a soldier and and the communists didn't
Really?
want to use him. And he was not part of the D-Day invasion. And they like to,
He was in Africa.
they like to, the Roosevelt traders around Roosevelt like to say, well, we did that because he sort of deflected the Germans, because the Germans didn't think we'd be stupid enough to invade without him. He was our only general that they feared
Patton.
because he defeated them in Africa.
I was going to say that's where he
defeated
made a
Rommel.
name for himself.
Rommel, who was probably the greatest general of the war, right? Rommel,
Yeah.
who eventually turned on Hitler, right?
Yeah.
Rommel basically used to say he's their only general. And people who say Montgomery defeated me are lying. I was defeating Montgomery easily until Patton came in. That guy's a genius.
Rommel credits.
Rommel said that.
That's interesting.
That scared the shit out of the Roosevelt people, because one thing Patton was an American patriot. He wasn't a Russian suck up like the people around Roosevelt. So eventually, when the bulge happened, Eisenhower was forced to put him on the sideline.
Pat,
He understood all of Patton's failures, but respected him completely.
Yeah.
And realized he was his best general.
Yeah.
All of a sudden, when he gets stuck at the bulge, he tells Roosevelt, we got to use Patton because he has a fresh army. I've been fighting for 6 months, lost a third of my people. He's got a fresh army. He's got our best army.
in Africa.
Off from south of France.
Okay.
He's in the south of France
Okay.
now.
And now he's moved up.
Gets into the
Okay.
south of France,
Okay.
goes right through France, like, I don't know, in days, ends up outside Berlin. And the Russians are a month behind. The Russians are still working on trying to get into Poland. Well, he's outside Berlin. And he says, let me take all of Berlin. And tell him, no, you got to leave that part of Berlin for Russia. Now, he was a very smart, educated man, knows about communism. Well, for the communists? We're waiting for Stalin to come in and oppress them? What do we want to do? This guy, Stalin was Hitler's ally. Are you forgetting? Oh, shit. And says, must be the communists around Roosevelt. Of course, they hear all this. So now he gets really marginalized. Eventually, who knows if he was killed or not, but eventually, but there's
Great movie though. At some point, the Legend of Patton came out right to Hollywood. Eventually, for some reason,
some of it got out, not
Right.
the whole thing.
that movie.
They don't draw. I mean, the movie will get you there, not completely. You don't realize where Russia is when he's sitting and waiting outside of Berlin. Russia is like 400 miles away
It's amazing.
and under stress. Remember,
Yeah.
Poland fought for the Germans. So even when they were, Poland had a lot of volunteers in the Nazi army. So when they went into Poland, they didn't get a country that went, ooh, nice to see you, like France did to us. They had to fight their way through Poland. A lot of people think that Patton could have gone through East Germany right into Poland and pushed them back to the Baltic countries. Plus, the Russian army was no match for us at that point.
They were underarmed.
Well, they were fighting for 5 years, 6 years. We were fighting for 3. And even though Normandy had an impact on us and the Bulge we had this new army now that had almost no casualties. And it was our best army, the one that defeated them in Africa. Well,
We could do a whole episode on.
we do. We got to do a history on just why we are where we are, and it's because of Marx. That's why we are where we are. But in any event, I mean, they're the same people. It's very hard to believe this. They're the same people behind mutilating your kids in school. It's the same group that wants to mutilate your kids in school, and you wonder, how can anybody believe that? Well, atheistic, homicidal communists can believe that. And they do. And you can read it. You can read Marx's plan for what should be done with education. Get your kid at 2, take him away from the parent. Because the kid should belong to the state, not the parent. Who the hell do you think decided in the Soviet Union what a kid did for a living? The parent? Mm-mm. Your kid's going to work as a welder. Your kid's going to be an athlete. Your kid's going to be an engineer. Your kid's going to be a street cleaner. You had nothing to say about it. Unless you were part of the party, in which case you were royalty and corrupt and rich. So, which gets me to Krasnaya Karolina. Now, why am I bringing up Krasnaya Karolina? You've never heard of her. Krasnaya Karolina is a ballerina, not a very famous one, I think an aspiring ballerina. She is she's an American citizen, but I think let me see if she's Ukrainian or Russian by background. Russian. So she's a dual U.S. Russian American citizen. And she apparently was against the invasion of Ukraine. And she donated $50 to a Ukrainian $50 to a Ukrainian charity back around Christmas time. And then she went to visit her parents in Yekaterinburg, right? Because they're getting divorced, and she wanted to comfort them both, and so she goes there. Somehow the Russians, because they spy on their people here like the Chinese do, knew that she had given this $50 contribution to a Ukrainian cause. So they arrested her, and they sentenced her to 14 days in jail, which went up to about January 29th. She made an appeal, and then they said she caused a fracas in the jail. Here's the quote: "The young woman was using coarse, obscene language in front of other citizens and was behaving rudely and defiantly." So they charged her under Article 275, which I'm not even sure has a crime attached to it, but it has a penalty of up to life in prison, to which she has now been sentenced. and they raised her donation to the charity. They now say it was $51.80, not just $50. Well, maybe that's the exact amount. And the charity is called Razum, which is a Ukrainian nonprofit based in New York. But she is now sentenced to up to life imprisonment for that contribution. She's an American citizen. Now, we should do everything we can to get her out, obviously. And with Biden, I wish I could offer the family a lot of hope, but he doesn't give a damn about Americans. He's wasted too many of our lives. He's killed too many of our people. He looks at his watch when our dead people return. He talks about his son being killed in war when he wasn't, to people whose sons really were killed in war. What he did in Afghanistan, I don't know how many Americans he had killed there because of his cowardice and his stupidity and his insanity and his compromise by China. But in any event, maybe somebody in the State Department will take pity on this kid. But I know they're going to go nuts when I say this, but you reelect him or somebody like him, 10 years from now, this could be us, maybe 5. Our court system is gone. It's gone. I mean, it isn't yet in this category of killing you, but that's what happens. When you let judges like Angamoron operate and Fanny the hoe, and the judge who's having trouble trying to figure out whether to dismiss her, come on, judge. Jesus, I mean, how about we start with the fact that if the CEO of a major company was having an affair with his number 2 person, he'd be fired. So what does it matter when she started? What does it matter if she started before he hired her? She hired him? After? She had a 1-year affair with him, secret, compromised the entire case, didn't tell anybody else. Who the hell knows what they discussed? The guy was going off to the White House, having conversations that obviously were intended to time her case, because it's not a real if you think it's a real prosecution, don't turn off this, just turn it off. You're not smart enough to understand what I'm about to say. I mean, this isn't a real prosecution. This prosecutor, and the reason he went to the White House is to time it. So they could, it's really hard to get 4 prosecutions in 1 year of the same person. I'm trying to look for another example of an American who's had 4 major prosecutions in 1 year. Can't find it. Can't find it. In fact, it's just inherently a violation of due process. Because I represented a person who was indicted for 4 different trials in 1 year. I go in front of the first judge and say, dismiss all of them because you just told me you don't care about due process. How can I prepare for 4 trials in 1 year? You want to win by wearing us down. You got to win because my guy's guilty. And I think a fair judge would say, Giuliani, you're right. I tell you what, for being such pigs and doing 4 cases in 1 year, we're going to dismiss all of them. And then maybe next year you can pick one. Is that going to happen? Not in Democrat-dominated places they're in. These are corrupt places. Where are they? Are they all over the country? We got a couple of Republicans in there. Independents. Bragg in corrupt New York. The same New York with Adams and Hochul. The same New York with Engelmoron. And Bragg, who throws out 50% of his cases, spends most of his time trying to figure out how to put criminals on the street, wants to put Trump away for something that happened before he was born. That's absurd. The other 2 are Smith. Smith has been found to be a major unethical prosecutor twice, once by a unanimous Supreme Court. And the Attorney General selects him for this prosecution. Doesn't that tell you he wants an unfair prosecution? If I want a fair prosecution, I go pick a guy like Smith, who had his case reversed 9-0 for framing somebody who was innocent. Doesn't get cleared until 2 years later, until his life is ruined. Aren't I trying to get him to do it again? You got to be intelligent to figure that out. And finally, we got Fanny and her lover boy in one of the most crooked places in America, Fulton County. And I mean, you really believe that the guy got reimbursed in cash? You believe that crap about cash coming from her father, who was a founder of a founder of the Black Panthers? Her father started life as a cop killer, an advocate of cop killing, I should say. I don't know if he ever killed one, but his organization did. You actually believe she kept the cash, right? Now, I want to do a quote from her to show you how dreadfully corrupt this country is. And nobody jumped on this. Ted, do you have that available? And then
Which one?
Which one?
Yeah.
The one where she tells you that she basically stole the cash from her campaign.
Yeah.
And nobody's following up on it.
Yeah, I got to get the right. I have a bunch of clips of hers, and give us 1 second. We're going to
Yeah,
get the right, make sure I get the right one.
They go through Fanny Big Mouth.
We have a ton of good clips.
Now, nobody ever accused Fanny of being the brightest, This is the person. Now, I used to be a prosecutor, so I get picky about prosecutors. How about this one? She's doing the most important indictment of her life. The most important indictment of her life. She's sleeping with the guy surreptitiously that's doing it for her, which she has to know is going to screw it up.
Yeah.
Strange choice of words, but in any event, comes time for the indictment. It's got to be a big day. She returns the indictment to the clerk's office. Clerk gets, let me tell you what happens with an indictment. I think the same thing is true in Atlanta, because I unfortunately was in the prison there as an arrestee. First time in my life. So you get the indictment. Clerk looks at it. And now what you're going to do with that indictment, I think she got it early in the morning. You're going to put it on the calendar because the judge has to approve the indictment. And I don't know about Georgia, but in New York federal court, the prosecutor has to show up, affirm the signature. Sometimes the clerk, the foreman of the jury has to show up. Sometimes not. Depends on the judge. But mainly the clerk has to look at it, make sure it's okay before the judge says okay. So the clerk is looking at the indictment, big, long indictment. I hope he was a little surprised to find me in there. The guy who put maybe more of the worst criminals in jail in the 20th century than anyone. I hope he said, gee, Giuliani? She indicted Giuliani? Enrico? My God, he almost invented it. But then he gets to the end and he says, oh, this must be an oversight. The grand jury never voted on this. So he, hey, Fanny, quite contrary. Did the grand jury, could you get me the indication of the grand jury vote?
You do that so fun.
We forgot.
All right.
Maybe she and the guy were too tied up the night before to get the grand jury. Who the hell knows? Maybe they went off to the Caribbean, but they were too tied up to get the grand jury to indict. They never got a grand jury vote. So they fix it because we're dealing with a crooked county. I mean, the indictment should have been thrown out like that. She then goes back, spends the entire day.
Cash is good in my purse.
Grand jury votes it. They don't even make a pretense that the grand jury has a role in it because it's the same piece of crap that she gave the clerk. Because luckily somebody copied it. You put it next to the actual indictment, it's the same damn piece of junk with all the typos in it. Because I tell you, she's not the brightest bulb. Now, we start right away with my problems with the judge. Any honest judge, Democrat, Republican of any kind, after hearing that story would dismiss the damn indictment and say, go back and do it again if you can. Because I'm not taking an indictment of a former president of the United States, much less the lowest guy in this city that didn't get voted by the grand jury. Because you can't pull this crap with me. This thing was filed without a vote of the grand jury. And then you have the same thing. This is you. This is Fanny. Take the grand jury out. Stop abusing them. And by the way, you had 2 grand juries in this case. Why'd you have 2 grand? We know why. To double the expenses for the lover.
Let's see if this is the right one, Mayor.
Who tells you that? Nobody.
But I always have cash at the house. That has been, I don't know, all my life. If you're a woman and you go on a date with a man, you better have $200 in your pocket. So if that man acts up, you can go where you want to go. So I keep cash in my house, and I don't keep cash as good in my purse like I used to. 'Cause I don't go on many dates, but when you go on a date, you should have cash in your pocket.
So my question was, where did that cash originally come from? If it
I had
didn't come out of the bank.
Cash is fungible. I've had cash for years in my house. So for me to tell you the source of when it comes from, when you go to Publix and you buy something, you get $50, you throw it in there. It's been my whole life. When I took out a large amount of money on my first campaign, I kept some of the cash of that. Like, to tell you, I just have cash in my house. I don't have as much today as I would normally have, but I'm building back up now. So you just put money in. It's a very good practice. I would advise it to all women.
I want to focus on the thing about the campaign.
Okay. I got to narrow that down then. Did she say it?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Okay, good. So I played it.
People can get lost in all the verbiage like they did the first time.
Yeah.
I wish you get a transcript of it.
Yeah.
Okay, go ahead.
Play it again?
But further in,
Okay.
you got to get closer to where she
Yeah,
says.
we'll have to cut it then and play it.
Let's play it one more time.
Okay.
For the benefit of the people, maybe.
But I always have cash at the house. That has been, I don't know, all my life. If you're a woman and you go on a date with a man, you better have $200 in your pocket. So if that man acts up, you can go where you want to go. So I keep cash in my house, and I don't keep cash as good in my purse like I used to. 'Cause I don't go on many dates, but when you go on a date, you should have cash in your pocket.
So my question was, where did that cash originally come from? If it
I had
didn't come out of the bank.
Cash is
Stop
Okay.
from here. Now, I want you to hear it from here. She's going to say cash is fungible, which is something somebody told her to say. I'm not sure she could even spell it. Now, let's listen to the rest of it.
I have to go. Okay.
Oh, don't go. Oh, God, cash, it's not right from there.
No, because I have to. It's a clip that we uploaded. Yeah. It'll take a second. I can, but it's
All
going
right,
to take a
all
second.
right,
Yeah.
all right.
but I always have cash at the house. That has been, I don't know, all my life. If you're a woman and you go on a date with a man, you better have $200 in your pocket. So if that man acts up, you can go where you want to go. So I keep cash in my house, and I don't keep cash as good in my purse like I used to. 'Cause I don't go on many dates, but when you go on a date, you should have cash in your pocket.
So my question was, where did that cash originally come from? If it
I had
didn't
cash
come out of the
for-
bank.
Cash is fungible. I've had cash for years in my house. So for me to tell you the source of when it comes from, when you go to Publix and you buy something, you get $50, you throw it in there. It's been my whole life. When I took out a large amount of money on my first campaign, I kept some of the cash of that. Like, to tell you, I just have cash in my house. I don't have as much today as I would normally have, but I'm building back up now. So you just put money in. It's a very good practice. I would advise it to all women.
So you can't identify when you came into this cash or where the cash came from.
I didn't say I couldn't identify it. No, nobody gives me anything. I am sure that the source of the money is always the works.
How I made them into good cross-examiners. Do you know what makes a great cross-examiner? I picked that out the first time I heard that witch. You took a lot of money out of your first campaign? How the hell did you do that? We generally call that stealing in New York. In America, what is Georgia that crooked? You can just take large amounts of cash out of your campaign, keep it in your house, and go to Publix? Do you realize how you could have ruined her on cross-examination, lady? This is why I want to cross-examine Biden. He'll do things like that, and they'll just sit there. I'm sorry, you did a great job in bringing this out in the first place, but this is inexcusable. Took money out of your campaign. She took a great deal of money out of her campaign, and nobody's following up on this. And this judge may rule that she doesn't get dismissed. She's dismissed from the case. She should get prosecuted. What the hell is going on in Fulton County? Jesus Christ, they stole an election and they got away with it. You got a governor, boy, you better take a look at your governor. Take a good look at Kemp. This is not bitterness over the election. This is the fire in my belly from the day I was a prosecutor. I can smell them. Take a good look at Kemp. Raffensperger, you have to take a look at. All you got to do is a couple of records. I mean, you got a place there, Republican, Democrat. Wow. Wow. I took money out of my campaign. Obviously, a lot of money because she had a lot of cash. Who lets you take money out of your campaign and pay for it at Publix? Let's go back and look at the records of her campaign. These campaigns have records. The campaign is only a few years ago. Why don't we get the records of her campaign? Let's see the money that went in. Gee, I'm not that good an accountant, but I can do that. I'll do it. I'll volunteer to do it. Give me all the records of her campaign. Give me 2 days. I'll tell you how much she stole. Unless she's lying about that. Now, if she's lying about it, she's lying about the cash. And she never gave him any cash because he was kicking back to her. So she loses either way, right? This is why you should watch this show. On this show, you get things you don't get anywhere else. And it really comes from the fact that I have a background and experience that these other guys don't have. I really put real criminals in jail. And they were smart. And I had to be smarter than them. And I was trained by the best people. It isn't me, it's people I was trained by. It's trained by a prosecutor who argued the Rosenberg case on appeal. You want to know why I know an awful lot about communism? The judge that I clerked for and was my chief mentor argued the Rosenberg case on appeal. He also prosecuted and convicted Frank Costello long before I ever knew anything about organized crime. Frank Costello was the head of the mafia in the 1950s. First one to be convicted of, the first really boss of the commission to be convicted. He actually ran the mafia for years for Lucky Luciano, when Lucky Luciano was in Italy fighting for us during the Second World War.
That's an amazing
fighting
story.
against the Nazis in Sicily.
It's an amazing story.
Secretly got a medal from the Americans. Probably vicious animal, but probably deserved it. But unlike Stalin, we didn't turn East Berlin over to him. We gave him a medal. That's it. Go away. Thank you. We got some use out of the bomb. I'm not opposed to that. But I am opposed to these people who sell out our country like Biden and the press that empower it. So I had that up there because Colin Powell said the following: America is the only country in the world that would go fight on a foreign soil, lose a good portion of their youth, and just ask in return, not for land, not for wealth, not to build an empire, just give us a nice, beautiful, quiet place to bury our dead and honor them. That's why you live in the greatest country on earth. And don't let these animals and these creeps and these communists teach you anything to the contrary just because we're human, because we're imperfect, because our job is to create a more perfect union. Colin Powell understood that. A lot of great Americans understood it. We got a few too many traitors right now in our government, but we're going to change that because you're going to stand up. So let's pray for the people of Israel like we always do every night. Let's pray, of course, for our people. God bless America.
And one more time.
Whole life, when I took out a large amount of money on my first campaign, I kept some of the cash of that. Like, to tell you, I just have cash in my house. I don't have as much today.
Our purpose to bring to bear the principle of common sense and rational discussion to the issues of our day. America was created at a time of great turmoil, tremendous disagreements, anger, hatred. There was a book written in 1776 that guided much of the discipline of thinking that brought to us the discovery of our freedoms, of our God-given freedoms. It was Thomas Paine's Common Sense, written in 1776, one of the first American bestsellers, in which Thomas Paine explained, by rational principles, the reason why these small colonies felt the necessity to separate from the Kingdom of Great Britain and the King of England. He explained their inherent desire for liberty, for freedom, freedom of religion, freedom of speech, the ability to select the people who govern them. And he explained it in ways that were understandable to all the people, not just the elite. Because the desire for freedom is universal. The desire for freedom adheres in the human mind, and it is part of the human soul. This is exactly the time we should consult our history. Look at what we've done in the past and see if we can't use it to help us now. We understand that our founders created the greatest country in the history of the world, the greatest democracy, the freest country, a country that has taken more people out of poverty than any country ever. All of us are so fortunate to be Americans. But a great deal of the reason for America's constant ability to self-improve is because we're able to reason, we're able to talk, we're able to analyze. We are